Yo. So we're going to start the show a bit different, just straight into it. Today I'm joined by someone I'm a very big fan of. I find him as a very beautiful mind, psychologically eccentric. The giant we and the former generations and our current generation stands on his shoulders to see the future. I'm joined by ex-bishop, Mr. Maponga. How are you doing, sir?
Greetings to you and all your viewers around the world.
Thank you. So let's just get right into it. Do you believe that we as a people, as the Karanga people, have a problem with dealing with the truth? And accepting and distributing the truth. Do you have a problem with the truth?
It's not a Karanga problem. Maybe it's a human issue. There are two big words that I would need to share with you. They are small words, but they are big. If you understand the depth of those words. Word number one is secret. Secret is information that is kept away from people for whatever reasons that you keep that information from them. And you only share it with those that you think are worth that information, and the timing is everything. But the second word is sacred. Sacred is information that you keep away from people. It's only given to those who must experience it. So when you look at culture, particularly the Karanga culture, then you want to understand which are the secrets of the tribe and what are the sacred issues around the tribe. So there are things we don't speak about to certain boys of certain ages, to certain girls of certain ages, not because they don't need to know that information, but they don't need it because they're not going to experience it. You get that information when you get there. So when you begin to look at the Karanga way and the proverbial, the idioms and stuff like that, it is actually meant that we can talk over these kids while we are talking our own things. And it's only now you guys who are slightly woke can hear when I'm Bonde and what. But in its initial spaces, those things are spoken past the kids who don't have the necessary experience around the issues. So, yeah, from my own perspective, the answer could be yes and no. It's a culture that is not only spoken, it's a culture that is experienced.
So the reason why I actually asked you the truth question first is because this conversation is going to be a very truthful. Some of the truth that we're going to discuss in this conversation is going to be very offensive to some viewers. Some is going to be very liberating to some viewers. And there's a word that you mentioned when you were explaining that. You said you talked about the woke culture. Where did I keep on hearing it over woke this? And I know what is this woke culture good for us as a society, or is it bad for us? What's going on with this woke thing?
The whole idea is eyes are useless when the mind is closed. So the woke idea has to almost marry that when you see my eyes open, it also means that my pineal gland, my mind is also open and teachable, adapting, growing, developing. Though in some certain cases, the woke idea is being commercialized to mean metrosexual, to mean people who have become, they have alternative lifestyles. So this whole LGBTQ, whatever, if you read from an American space, they actually want to brand it as the culture of the woke, So if you still don't understand how homosexuality works, you're not woke. So it almost feels like, man, guys, you're moving brains to the backside of the human body. There should be more happening in the upper side than in the lower side.
I like that you touched on the LGBTQ part, and they could have got a better word. They call it we're in what they call Pride Month. I think it should be Humility Month, but that's a story for another day. What's your stance and on this rise of this forced ideology and thought on us, whereby you're more likely to see an LGBTQ plus couple on screen in your media than you are to see a black family that's happy on screen. Can you elaborate on that? What's the current state of things as they are right now?
Media is propaganda. And those who sit behind the screens to decide what to put on screen, they know exactly what they want to portray. When you look at Africans, black people in movies, in some certain cases, you actually are put on the set to go and be killed there. Movies just beginning and boop, 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 the first guy to go, you know.
I know, it's a black guy.
Guys, there's a black guy there, unless he's the main actor. And when you look at even the European movies, once they're beginning to portray the royalties of American space or British space, you look at the role of the black person, they must always appear as servants and slaves, those that are bringing foods and stuff. So, and again, when you look at some of the movies, particularly even on the South African side, when you talk about black movies, it's either witchcraft, it's thuggery, it's stealing, it's thieves, it's taxes, and very, very, very deliberate.
They're never inventors, they're never the heroes, they're always
You hardly see, as you rightfully put it, you hardly see a portrayal of a family, mother, father, and daughter and son, growing, living together. It must always be dysfunctional sort of thing.
And just to add on what you're saying, have you seen how the Russians and the Chinese are portrayed in every movie again? The Russians are always the ones who are trying to tamper with the nuclear weapons.
And aggressive. and the Chinese, and it's deliberate. But now that we have media in our own hands, as Africans, we must be careful of falling into that trap of the popular norms and propaganda that is condescending to African culture and its people. And as such, the portrayal of family becomes the building of a family. The destruction of family in terms of media becomes also the destruction of family, because people are impressionable. People work with perceptions. And the quality of perceptions that you put out there as to what is this like. I mean, if you look at even the LGBT space, before media, if media was not there, this would be taboo. Yeah. But it has slowly been put into media, and what was once unacceptable is now receiving some warmth. And worse still, that actually, from my own experience, some of the greatest Mongols in the media space are of homosexual behavior.
I want to give a slight pushback, and I want to play devil's advocate on that one. You believe people can be born albino, right?
I don't know, it's a fact.
And so that's just partly pigmentation and, biology can just, you're not going to trade up on the app. Do you believe that someone can be born, because they say they are born in the wrong body. Do you believe that chemically and hormonically albinoism can happen in the...
I hear you. That's a very simplistic way of looking at it.
No, I'm just saying. If...
Let me come on that one. We need to start discussing issues of agriculture.
All right.
We need to start discussing issues of chemical tampering, the degeneration of human genes at the expense of health and etc. There's a research that I once saw the other day where frogs that were drinking chlorine water in a pool, something like that, ended up actually being homosexual, including the birds. You can go and Google that research, you'll find it on things. So actually you can through food, alter the human gene. As much as fluoride, for example, it actually benumbs the brain. These Colgates that we eat, and imagine how much Colgate we've
every
eaten.
Day you have to,
and it actually creates like a whole, it calcifies the brains. So, and when we begin to have a problem where our diet, our genes, our forms of contraception, our medicines that we are consuming for the past 100 years are beginning to show some faltering in terms of genetic makeup and compositions of the body makeup, do we go ahead to discuss that it must be legalized? Or do we step back to find out what is it that we're not doing right in terms of feeding and treating and healing the human body? So yes, albinos are there. Yes, people with 2 organs are there. And it looks like they're becoming more by the day. So is it an issue of I was born like that? Or as an intelligent community, we needed to step back a little bit and say, are we not over-commercializing our diets and etc.? Are we not eating too much of the soft foods and drinking these things? What is it that is in our diet that is actually tampering with these things? Then we have a society that is cognitive. For us just to become reactive, now there's a problem. Before we even know what is the problem, no, let's legalize it. Let's make it normal. And so I want us to think first before we can react.
All right. It's there are two instances that happened recently. I think yesterday or today in Indonesia, the Indonesians where they barred the delegation for the LGBTQ rights. They're like, no, not here. And then in Uganda, he's getting flake. The guy's getting flake for saying we won't tolerate this. So my question then becomes, why is this on top of the priority list instead of people who are dying with famine, wars, hunger? What people are doing in the bedroom, why is it being an agenda that's being forced down our throats?
I've always termed the arrogance of the Americans. That in United Emirates, in China, in Indonesia, and other parts of the world where even human rights are being violated, it's not an issue. They were in Afghanistan the other day where women are not even allowed to work. Those are human rights at proportional spaces. You get into the Middle East where people are even stoned and killed. Not that they will be. They are being stoned and killed. Now, Museveni has just made a law that says, I will. If you are caught, you will be. He has not yet done anything. And the whole Western world wants to run around and castigate him. We only understand the agenda of the Americans and their hypocrisy at that level, that you would rather be discussing issues of matrimonial flavors when sick people, when wars are happening. The Black Lives Matter in America, where children are dying in America, where Black people are disenfranchised in America, and they've not even finished yet fixing up the mess they caused in Libya.
We're not even talking about Iraq, about Afghanistan.
Talk about Iraq, and all these wounds that America is creating around the world. Are these human rights? Is this a concept of democracy? That you become militarily strong, then you run around the whole world, you force them to use your money, you force them to eat your diet, you force them to eat your news and propaganda. On top of that, then you begin to tell them how many children they must have, who they must talk to, which countries they must visit, which countries must not visit.
Which currency they must use.
And ultimately now you want to tell us who to sleep with. And who not to sleep with. Then you begin to see this what we call cultural sodomy of the highest order. This becomes
that's a very harsh word, but on the pushback I'll give though is when as I interact with some of the people in this community, right, in this country, they always seem to come to this one conclusion: kuti yes, madara anenge achitirambidza kuti hazvizi kubvumidzwa. But these are the same madaras who are linking up with us after hours. I'm after 8. I'm sure, Lama after 8, you've heard of him in Durban, Lama after 8. Whereby, yes, on public, we might come and say, no, we frown upon this. But the same madaras who are saying, no, are the same people who are actually going out with these people. So how do we fix this double standard?
Again,
and is it historically because there are people, the other elderly people are talking and said, we knew, like back in the day that this one and this one was there, and but we never wanted to.
Rightfully so, Nyawadara. We're not here to condone or to refute the existence of these behaviors in the past. What is worrying is the core of the community, where life is existing for continuity and processes of moral and ethical behavior, so that we can have a society that is functional. My argument remains there. As to what people do in and after hours, that's a conversation for another day. But can we allow the center to hold, which is the core, which is family? And if we find that many of our Dara are again getting involved in these things, the issue must be now even more complex, because we're now dealing with the fragmentation of the male species, the egos of the male species, the pressures that the male child is finding. What are the causes? What is it that is making men of these days feel safer with men than with women? Is it coming as a societal issue? Is it coming as an understanding issue? We play soccer together, we go to the gym together, we do our boxer shorts together, and is it possible that actually women are becoming more aggressive to an extent where men are saying, hey, Asingcono vele ngihlala nama-gents.
ijwabu lomuntu owesilisa lomile jona, you know, like a woman is soft, you know that imnandi into lana.
No, but it's on you.
No, so you know, I like the way you're going with this point, and I just wanted to. There's a question also, because you're even saying, is it because women are becoming more masculine? And it seems right now in our society,
are women a turn off now? Is it easier for a man now just to be in a space of a woman and get in a relationship, and you're not getting into trouble? Why are our young men right now scared of getting married? What are the issues surrounding that? So.
But anyway, marriage behind the scenes. But what I'm saying is what I'm trying to ask is that you know, you're having now women being a masculine man, you're being told that you're toxic, right?
You're dogs.
And then feminism is coming in and it's acting like it's a new phenomenon, of which, when from an African context, from our mothers, we've always known, whether we're talking of Queen Lozike, whether we're talking of, you know, it goes back years and years, whereby women have been and we never had a problem. We never had this gender war between men and women. What's your take on the current state of, say, feminism and this? If you go to the gym and you say, no, this is nonsense, I won't stand for that, you're a toxic man. And you need to have the term is actually, you know, get in touch with your feminine side. No, I do not have a feminine side. I'm a man. What's your take on that?
Very interesting that you bring up that point of feminism and take the girl child to work. Some of the programs that I've seen happening in South Africa, the girl child agenda from the United Nations perspective, filtering into Africa Union, you know, the girl child, beautiful idea, because they think and they feel the male child has always been advantaged. So here you are now as a society. You take all the girl children and you step them up the ladder and put them on the 16th floor. Now they're on the 16th floor, they need husbands, and the husbands are on the ground floor. So they need to come down again from those high echelons and come down. Now you come to gender equity issues on the South African space, preferential procurement, women coming first. So women can now do the business, they can run the CEO. They've been privileged, they've been given more opportunities at school, and. So you have all this generation of very well-to-do women. But when they are well-to-do, and now they want to look for marriages, their marriages are not well-to-do, because now you must go and then they begin to tell you, why must I worry about the sausage when I own the pig? You know, and you begin to have this entire community of super women, and I've worked with some of those spaces, and those super women, some of them, unfortunately, it comes at a sacrifice of their own homes. Some sacrifice their husbands and children. 2-3 months later, children are dumped at crash with nannies because they have a career to run. Because these jobs, some of them are not as easy as women think. Yes, they may have the aptitude to run these jobs, but the stress levels, the time, the allocation, the
consistency,
and etc. You must be on the road, and there you are with a husband there and you there. So these homes are a problem. So we've had a generation of successful women who have successful homes. Good for that. Successful women with broken down homes. Successful women with a bag full of sex toys. So and again, it's pathetic and it's sorry that when some of these women get into positions of power, and I've said this and I was beaten very hard in South Africa, but I'll say it again. It's a shame that when some of these women get into power, they are responsible for oppressing fellow women. They go there not to advance the agenda of women preservation within the corporate space. They go there to join the macho men.
Yes.
And become the HRs who are giving fellow women 2 months, 3 months maternity leaves, as if they don't understand that a mother needs at least a year. Sweden has done that now. 1 year for the husband, 1 year for the wife. So at least for the 2 years, the child can have a present parent. Now, instead of you coming, when women come into the corporate space, the issue must not be feminine story. The issue is putting the women's issues on agenda, because it is the way corporate space has been designed around men. And all of a sudden, when women join the group, they actually in some certain cases become worse than the men that are there. Instead of them transforming the environment, they've become perpetrators of women injustices. So it's a sorry sight. But as I rightfully put it, you develop women, you leave men behind. Those women must come back and fetch the men. So what do? You bring up all children in one generation at the same pace. One generation, if one generation can just be just and fair, you can cut this off. Don't work like this for a couple of years. Then a few years later, you come back again and pick up the boys. Because if we go at the pace we're going now, we might have to come back another 10 years from now and the boy child.
You know, before I get into the question I really want to ask next, there's another question I need to ask. I want to ask, you're talking about the boy child, and I want to ask Kuti, why, you know, like you look at culture, especially in SA, you look at most cultures in the most formidable years of a young man, as is like from 12, 13, esengena with the teens and stuff, you find that, you know, vanenda gomo, whatever. How come in Zimbabwe that does not happen in our culture? What did it used to happen, and how are we building these men?
We have that culture. We had that culture. In some certain parts of Zimbabwe, it's still happening. Kunana Mberengwa, Nana Chilonga, where I was born. In Mayangwa, these guys actually came. So they would go around the whole village collecting boys for circumcision and stuff like that. My father was into church space and then ran away with me and stuff like that. And I later on had to do it for myself.
Ultimate Moses story.
Yeah. But yes, it used to happen. And how do you know that culture is educated on the trait? Because you even have the names for these ceremonies.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So if you find that the word is there in a culture, like in the Zulu culture, they had stopped doing it during the times of Shaka, which is in the 18th century. The reason is that Shaka wanted many boys to go to war. And once you're circumcised, it slowed down the process. So he cancelled the whole circumcision story because he wanted to group people for war. And these movements also in migration, when people are staying here, staying there, some cultures fall off along the way as people are traveling and migrating away from each other, because you need a stable community that then begins to preserve itself. So yes, it used to happen, and it's a good process. And again, on another day when I'm excited, I'll come and share with you that the culture which is practiced in the Bible, if you find people around the face of the earth who practice those cultures, they are the owners of the text. So your brother has died, huh? Then God says, go and sleep with his wife so that his generation can continue. A culture that understands and practices that, they own the black book.
Do you feel like we've got a shortage of male leadership as an African society?
There's a gap of male leadership that is there intentionally so for commercial reasons, colonial commercial reasons, that you cannot have a nation that builds strong people who can lead themselves. The governments and the colonial system needs people it can manage, not people who can think and transform their community, because they become a nuisance in a community. In fact, it is easier to build beer gardens and so that people can get drunk than building leadership institutions. It's easier to manage drunk people than to manage sober people.
I like how you went into the institution part, because that was my next question. Because we as African, I find it's weird that we're not willing to pay and build our own institutions. Your library, the embassy of Ningi, or this donation foundation of whoever. We're busy with building takeaways and chicken spots and beer, like you rightfully said. How do we fix that, the institution level, where we build our own libraries, we build our own schools, we build our own health facilities?
You're looking at an African man like yourself. This thing starts early from life. Even if right now you'd wake up with 10 million in your pocket as your money, honestly speaking, you will do what every other man does. If you should go back to Cholocho and build a library, I'll count you amongst 100. Because the culture of learning, the culture of investing in research, for example, the culture of preserving sacred sites, the culture of preserving our own history, it has not been taught to us. Whereas in our previous generation, it was part of our lifestyle. Hence, we can still find a few of these artifacts and crafts and spaces where you can experience culture. Our modern generation studies away from itself, not into itself. So you literally have what I might want to call academic tourism, where you are touring away from yourself to go and explore the Germans, the Japanese, the British, the Charlemagne's, the Napoleon Bonaparte's, and the walls of China. You come back and say, yeah, boy, been to school, man, been to school. Man. How do you know you've been to school? By reciting all these poems. And then, so we learn more about the other than we learn about ourselves.
Someone actually put it rightly. It's like we are the only culture that measures success by how far away you can get away from your own people.
There you go. You even look when you make money. The first thing you do is you change address.
Yeah, obvious.
Change car.
Greystone Park.
In some certain cases, change wives. And so it's literally what made me cannot enjoy what I have become.
I feel sorry for you, Mkwenyana, you know that. If your future Mkwenyana, I feel sorry for you.
My future Mkwenyana is not a problem because all I want is land. My daughter will marry his land, not him.
You always say that, and you know when you're talking about culture, you know, I was taken aback because you having your Christian background and stuff, and now you saying that, when I read your blog, you're very big on accountability. Do you take some accountability whilst you were a bishop on running a smear campaign towards our culture? That's that question we discussed about that we will...
It's true. I mean, maybe this is where it is painful because you want to be candid and you want to be honest. The preaching part of it, yes, part of it was actually colonial preaching where you are telling people what to put on, what to eat, how to do this and how not to do this, stay away from this. So you become basically an advisory center for cultural disintegration and telling people as much as possible that they must become Eurocentric rather than becoming cultured. So it's a fact that the preaching part, it's unfortunate. It is most of it. Tell me, sit in front of any pastor who is preaching. If he finishes the sermon without telling people how horrible culture is and how horrible their behavior is, then that preacher did not come home, you know? So we must always be condemning these things, and even some stuff we don't understand, we call it witchcraft. The other day I almost fell off my chair. The guy is asked to pray before he even said anything. First words out of his mouth, Tosunga moya ya madzinza. Oh, you're tying ancestral spirits. What have they done to you? The first thing you want is to tie them to what? For what?
While you're actually referring to a document that actually acknowledges the genealogy of...
It's madzinza. Daniel, chapter 12. Go away, Daniel, and join your ancestors. And the Bible is not chickening around the issues of ancestors. And then you don't believe in ancestors, but you believe in the ancestors who, through the God of Abraham, God of Jacob's, God of Isaac's, and these are not ancestors. You don't want to put tombstones on your father's grave, but Abraham put a tombstone for his wife Sarah.
Because when it comes to this now, right, this is around your marketing. Is it a branding thing where do you think packaging ne branding? Remember afana ma twins vainza nani? Ma twins akasungira kufika nembe marare anza nani? Unawazi nai boys. Yeah. Like, do you think it's a branding thing whereby we're not being, cause inini ne retso rangu ne machirangu ne bute rangu, and people find it weird when I say, maybe when I walk out of my house and say no, nasa dambo no itaoshi chivanu changu msango, and people are like, do you think it's a branding thing that people, cause everything, the paper that people are burning, it's the same essence that are burning in churches. I mean, everything that's happening is in, when you talk of whether it's the same communion that you guys are having. It's, you know what I mean? Everything is core. So do you think we as Africans have a branding problem?
We got to go numbers 27. Is it 27 verse 28 verse 7? You know, to kana mo ya kuno mundu bigiro chikasha na changu chi wine muise bajinga pe aritara hapa. Kana muita sacrifice by mundiri uchikasha na changu. And again, the cultures that practice these things are the owners of the text. But when you wait for a Eurocentric perspective, people who don't even understand these few illustrations I've given you, you tell a white man to say, go and sleep with your brother's wife. He'll faint. You tell him to say, take a half hin of wine and pour it on the ground, then do some libation. But Africans, we understand that. So the problem has been this cultural dominance of the Eurocentric perspective in British and European space, where it is not just about culture, China. It's about the economy of culture. Because if you can say to a man, you cannot access God without a jacket and a tie, the next thing you do, because a person wants to see God, you set up a shop where you sell the jackets
and the ties in the Bible.
So immediately you begin to see that it's not just a faith statement that people are worried about. It's actually the aftermath of that faith statement. It must now be converted into an economy. So you begin to buy cakes for your weddings instead of bigamaheu, because God approves more of white weddings than he does of an African thing. And again, don't eat maheu because, and then you create your own beers, and etc. So we need to understand that actually culture is currency. Culture is currency. When you transform a certain culture to be like yourself, you can cash on that transformation, because everything that they're going to be behaving and doing, buying and eating and celebrating, you are going to be supplying those goods. So if your culture is captured, he who has captured your culture has captured your currency.
But it's a sad state, because like...
Why did you say?
No, I totally understand that. And what I'm trying to then come back to you and say is that it's a sad state of things, because, you know, earlier on I was having a conversation with my brother here, and then we're talking about the Moors and the democracy and how they exported that. So it's like we civilized the world for the world to come and colonize us. It's like chakapa notes but not fana wakangwarisa.
In fact, ndaitaura na mdana mchwangu the other day by airport. We must also take accountability as Zimbabweans that we are responsible as Zimbabwe for the colonization of the southern hemisphere. We are responsible.
True.
Because through our gold mining and dealings in the 14th, 15th century with the Phoenicians, with the Chinese, the Portuguese, then it's only through those trades that the world knew that there was a place somewhere in the south where the King Solomon's mines were, where gold and etc. was found. And when they came and they discovered it was true, that's how they entered into the south. So actually the availability of our raw material and our strength became our weakness. It's only that we fell off to sleep on our job, and we lost quite of the glory that we had. And on the issue of democracy, I would pass a comment in passing that if you look at all the civilizations of old and their sophistication, they were not democratically done.
True.
It was just leadership done. If you look at the pyramids of Giza in Sudan and Nigeria, you look at the great Zimbabwe ruins, Dombo Shava, Matopos, Mutauka kingdoms and stuff like that throughout the whole world, from the Chinese to the pyramids of Peru and temples in the midst of Vietnam and anywhere else. Those civilizations were not done on a democratic way, including countries that are more successful. They don't work on democracy. What you need is dictatorship, but benevolent dictatorship, where a leader knows what he wants to do and he's got enough time in his lifespan to implement those ideas. That's how Germany becomes strong, because it is on the dictatorship of Hitler that he converted the whole country into a machinery of, and Germany is benefiting today from the background and the strong foundation that Hitler put.
So, do you think we can... I love the work that you're doing with Farmers of Thought. I really didn't want to dwell too much into Farmers of Thought, because everyone who puts a microphone in front of you wants to ask you about Farmers of Thought. But I wanted to ask, can we build a university on ATR, African traditional religion, and how do we then... Because ndobanga chara pe package about how then do we module actually in the curriculum to say.
I've passed that bookshop, that bus stop, long time ago. I've created an institution, Farmers of Thought, which is right now, people might look and laugh and play, but I'm not playing. This is a virtual training space for international people around the whole globe, where we are beginning to filter information between the graduates and the workplace, where we are starting to see transformation, we are motivating for innovation, and we are beginning to drive a Pan-African, a genuine Pan-African, mindset with a genuine respect and reverence of our cultures also. So what we see me doing on Farmers of Thought on that space, it might look like it is not official, but it is actually official, because in the back office of that and in the inboxes, the books that have been written so far, the business that have been set up so far, the networks that have happened in that space, the innovations that have come through, it's immeasurable. Maybe one day when I die, people will jump out from those corners and begin to say, this is how my life has changed. And back to that, I've also set up a library, a huge library. You will find it on Telegram, Farmers of Thought, FOT Reading Club. I've stocked there more than 3,000 books plus African-centered books. So from the histories of slaveries and etc., the Anunnakis, the Black Books of the Dead, the beautiful, beautiful content.
The link is below. The link is below. We'll put the link. Yeah. We'll put the link right here below.
Reading Club, and so I'm already working on a visual space. And as early as last week, some few people who are more organized are now starting to approach me saying, "Can we now institutionalize this knowledge so that we can actually have modules?" So Dr. Shanice, I think she's out in London right now. She's working on the first curriculum of leadership, African leadership models. And I've designed the material. They are standardizing it and everything else. We'll create an app so I am running with the modern generation, and I'll place information where I think that you as young people should easily access that information and be able to transform the next generation.
Wow, let's talk about SA for a bit. Why do you think there's such a high crime rate in South Africa? It's actually called the murder capital right now. Why is that so? And how come? And not to sound disingenuous, and not that I'm saying that white people are not dying. How come there are a lot of black people killing black people in SA? Is it the residue of apartheid, violence? What's going on?
Crime is international, and is a problem that we all face on a day-to-day basis. But what makes South Africa different is not just crime, it's violent crimes, where it's not just about me taking your phone. After I've taken the phone, I must stab you, I must shoot you. After I come to the house and I steal what I want, I must rape you, and I must, it is that element. And looking at it from a psychological perspective, you want to understand again the culture of violence, that ever since the white man put his feet on the South African ground, all South Africa has ever lived is violence. From the taking away of land issues, the killing of cattle, the mines, the deassociations of families, husbands going for a year, 2, 3, 5 years in the mines there, dying there, women left with children and children growing without fathers. Then the township mindset comes in before they even start enjoying that township mindset, full of illegitimate children because wives are at home, fathers are in town, making new families that side. So anger starts brewing in the background. Then apartheid comes in and war breaks off. Young boys and girls see men and women being bent in tires and being torched. And some of these young men get involved in this crime. It becomes normal. That actually, and then the police are coming with guns and shooting and etc. Then thugs begin to also get the guns, crime starts. So you begin to see the breeding of a society that actually starts losing the sanctity of life. In the times of apartheid, it would not be scary for you to walk past a dead body. Even now, when you can walk past, someone is being robbed next to you, you don't say nothing about it. You literally walk past. And so you understand when you breed a culture and a community that is violent, unless and until we can begin to debrief that mindset. And worse still, media does not make it easy. The movies.
We're being desensitized.
It's all about shooting, killing,
we're constantly being desensitized. Violence is like on WhatsApp status, on Twitter. It's just you can come out like just yesterday. I was watching the woman who was a witness in Cape Town who just got shot, and it's like it's another normal day.
2-minute news. Let's move to the next.
And then, do you feel like we're using social media responsibly? When it comes to the agendas that we're trying to push as an African people, this pan-African agenda that we're moving towards?
It takes, and I've stopped blaming people too much. It takes education. And every good teacher and every good farmer must be patient. It takes a correct season. I've seen how social media can be of good help. Look at the Black Lives Matter story that erupted, the death of that boy Floyd, that within minutes, the whole world knew something had happened there, and how blacks started coming together and mobilizing each other. And so there's a good side to the media story. But I think like any tool, when it is misused, it is also damaged, where people build each other, and then through media we destroy each other again, and we I mean, some of us in our old age who have gone to around the whole block, where some media that is building you up. Tomorrow morning they want to have you for breakfast, and then they cut you again. Then you dust up yourself, and you walk again, and then all of a sudden one day they discover, no, we're lying. But who can come back? Does media ever come back and
nah,
say,
they never. You know the game.
Yeah.
You know the game.
Done is done. Let bygones be bygones.
There's also like as a young man, there's a problem that I'm seeing. That all these revolutionary parties all across Africa, do you feel they've betrayed the cause they set out to achieve in the first place? And how do we move from saying, we are now passing down the baton to the next generation? And just a disclaimer, I'm not saying anyone should pass anything to anyone. I'm just saying, you talk of South Africa, EFF, and, like you talk of Zimbabwe, Zambia, Nigeria, all over the continent. Do you feel like the revolutionary parties that liberate the countries...
No, we have a problem, a genuine problem, that we undermine ourselves to such an extent that we cannot trust those that are coming after us, that they have learned from us. So it's a mistrust of information, number one. Number two, there's the smaller guys and opposition parties that are there. I've said this to EFF a dozen times. I've said this to Chamisa and CCC a dozen times. And I'll say it again, even here, and put it on record. You cannot be talking about a revolution without knowledge. And you cannot talk about a revolution when, in fact, you just want to become the new colonizer yourself. The question is, what are you going to do differently? Because the issue is not leadership. The issue is the quality of software, the policies, the constitutions that govern that office that you're putting a person into. So right, tomorrow morning, boom, we put Chamisa as president in a country. The courts are still standing. The legal frameworks are still standing. The immigration policies are still standing. The banking laws are still standing. The agricultural laws are still standing. Tourism is still standing. And the rest of the information. And until the African child understands that you cannot be swapping hyenas with foxes, the issue is not leadership. The issue is we as a people. Are we aware exactly as to what is it that is governing us? What is it that is binding us? Right now you could be working in Marange and you're plowing in your field. And while you're plowing in the field, you pick up a diamond. You must run away from that diamond. Why? Because you're not allowed to hold a diamond. Why? Because there's a policy in government that talks about mining. Then who wrote that law? When was it written? For who was it written? And then you would find that even if you can change leaders, until we understand that we're not Roman and we're not Dutch. If we are Roman and we are Dutch, then give us the damn passports.
I like where you're going with this, because I always laugh when I see, and I don't know whether I'm about to commit a crime or not. If I'm committing a crime. When I see these guys wearing these white wigs, like I'm like, why are you guys wearing the wigs?
Like really? Like really?
Why are you? So
even these chiefs putting on those stupid little red robes, they're supposed to be representing the British Empire. So our own chiefs are also captured by putting on those those laws. And look, I mean, and so even our culture needs to be liberated, because now we have a legacy of oppression, which we are now vilifying and we are now pontificating. Like this is our culture of putting Kanauri chief was this
robe number plate.
Number plate up. And you look and say, where is this culture coming from? In fact, in our own African culture, red clothes are not even identified with royalty. That's a no. That's a no.
Yeah.
Totally, it's but that's British culture. So our own kings, who are supposed to be custodians of culture, now there he comes, fully colonized from head to toe. No, then that's why Chinua Achebe said things are falling apart, and the center is no longer holding.
Let's test this theory, right? Say Maponga wakes up tomorrow, he's the president of Zimbabwe. What are the five key?
Prophecy or
what are the five key things that you would change, and what would you put in place?
Number one, I will decentralize the whole capital city concept. I'll move the Department of Tourism to Victoria Falls, Department of Agriculture, maybe to Mtare, Department of Mining, maybe in Kwekwe, Department of Culture, Mashingo, Department of Finance, Bulawayo. Harare can remain as a legal capital. By so doing, you move the entire ministry around the whole country with their budgets, with their manpower. You allow development to start happening. In other words, you decentralize the capital city. Automatically to reduce the pressure on the capital city concept. This city was built to be habited by not more than 140,000 whites, with about 60, 70 to 200,000 blacks. Right now, we're sitting on 2, 3, 4 million. The infrastructure can't take that.
I heard Morton Jeff was built for 500,000 people.
There you go.
Now we're 2 million.
Our roads, people are complaining, and me too. Hey, we need roads. Hey, newspaper, no more WhatsApp, no more Twitter. Hey, our hospitals, what? Meanwhile, we just lack the ability to think. What is the problem? It's a 14-seater taxi, and you are fitting in 150 people in that taxi. So our infrastructure and our development, the small housing projects that are happening around the cities of Harare right now, are not speaking to power, to water, to roads, to infrastructure, to hospitals. So that after all these developments that you are seeing, these beautiful buildings that are coming, the question is, are they talking in terms of increasing on the grid? So the first thing I'll do is to decentralize the whole concept of capital city and allow systems. Development. Number 2, I will immediately abolish the prison and throw it away. I would rather deal with people serving sentences in their own villages. Because if you kill a person, I cannot put you in jail. I will need you to start working for the rest of your life to look after the family of the husband that you have killed. So for me, that's rehabilitation.
Can I just follow up just there, Ndambu? I want to pick your brain on something. What's your take on, South Africa does not have a death sentence, but Zimbabwe has a death sentence. What's your take on the death sentence?
It's life for life. What's the problem? If you kill a person, what makes your life more important than the one that you have removed? So maybe that's a conversation for another day. But
Number 3.
So we would have to get rid of the whole prisons. Right. And the judiciary system needs to speak to cultural values. Where Mosha Inorich, and it's not only Muno or Komita Mosha, but the entire family. So by rehabilitating the family, then we can name this country Zimbabwe. You build homes first on solid rock, then you can build a country together. So there's a strong bias towards proper cultural orientation to allow members of every community to be accountable to each other. Before we can have a country, we need families that are solid. Number 3, I would immediately throw away the paper money into the dustbin. I would convert all that into gold coins or into gold, and then give people plastic papers to go and swipe around and do their buying. Then it's value for value. You don't have to come to my house and I give you my cow and you give me papers. That's theft. Even if it's $1,000, but it's theft. Ask me why.
I'm listening.
Because at the end of the year, my cow has given you another cow.
Or 2 or 3.
But the paper money that you've given me is depreciated. So we need to exchange value
for value.
For value. So barter system for me becomes a mode of operation. Except for other transactions, of course, that are commercial. But I will have to put my foot in and restore that value and dignity. Number 4, I will make sure that all the citizens in the country, at the land of Zimbabwe, it is valuated to know of the 82 minerals that we have in Zimbabwe, how much quantities of those minerals do we have in each section, from gold to aluminium to the end of the tunnel, to uranium and copper and etc. And I want the value there. How much? What the quantity? And what is the value of these minerals? Number 2, I want to come around and see our forestrations. And I want the value of that. Number 3, I want our water reserves that run through this land. What is the value of that water? I want the figure over there. Then I want to look at our air, our space. How much capacity do we have in the air? And I want the value over there. And I want the total survey of the human resource capital we have in the land. How educated are we? And what's the value of each head? I want the total there. Cut the long story short, I would want to add up all these values and have a figure at the bottom there of what is the value of Zimbabwe as a country. Then divide that figure by 25 million people. Then I'll know the value of each Zimbabwean that is walking on the face of this earth. Having said that, every piece of land is valued at that value. As such, anyone with a piece of land anywhere can walk up to the bank and get the value of their land. That's development for me. So right now we have only city land that you can go to the bank with, which is sitting on top of a sewage pipe. Yet his house is sitting on a gold mine. And that land is worth nothing. But it's worth something. So you begin to see what you call this capital concept again of banking, where we can notice that it's a European colonial mindset, where only those that are living within electricity places, etc., have value for land and a few farmers. But the rest of the country is actually unbankable, uninsurable, and unprofitable. So for me, number 4 will be the
value of the land and the people of the country.
Value of land. Number 5, huh?
Yeah.
5, I will transform our educational institutions. Totally. Close the departments and allow each department to become creative and create products, new products. Engineers must start creating real stuff in their departments. Students must go there to come up not only with books, but come up with products. Studying must be to solve problems. So I would walk up to the university and say, okay, here is a problem, honorable department. With all the skills and the books that you have. Look at Bulawayo. Look at Bulawayo. Crying for water for as long as I remember. The technical universities are there, departments are there, and the whole university, you cannot solve.
Including professors.
who lecture on mining, on engineering, and those ideas for me are just useless ideas, because unless you can convert them into practical transformation, it's worth nothing. So yes, I will do that. And number 6 rather, which is a bit uncomfortable, I would give the white Jesus a holiday. I would send him on a holiday.
Interesting.
A very, very, very nice holiday, and just tell him to step aside a little bit and allow people to re-find themselves, be ethical, be truthful, be honest. And that already speaks to the transformation and ownership of time. We need to change the way we celebrate ourselves around our own culture. And having said that, what is the last thing I would do? Oh, I think that sums up quite a bit. I might be tempted to rebuild the Great Zimbabwe, but from another hill, not the same one. Just relive that old memory in the present. Yeah.
My last and final question: you are in and out of the country, and with every trip you take, you always then come and see how, whether it's congestion, whether it's how people are behaving when just traffic. It's just a reflection of the society. What's your take on the current society of Zimbabweans as individuals? The way we are selfish, the way even the way is the social fiber of us as varana. It's just where are we going? What's happening with us?
Actually, firstly, I noticed that when I came back, the amount of toxicity that was on the media space. I mean, when I was in South Africa, I was being told by the South Africans, go back home. Stop talking about our issues here. When your country is falling apart. And I said, I'll go back home. Then I come back home, and the Zimbabwe was saying, go back to South Africa. You brought nothing except a beard.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And then people just want to toss me up and down. But I'm not perturbed. I'm not disturbed by any chance. But that's a toxic environment. And it's toxic for one or two reasons. That opposition politics, they think that no one else thinks outside of them, which is unfortunate. And again, this politics of you are either this or that, you must be this or that, it's kind of polluting, because I'm
neither this or that.
I'm just here reflecting. If this does good, I will recognize it. If this does good, I'll recognize it. If this does bad, I'll mention it. If this does bad, I'll mention it. Now, who are you? No, you must be there. People lie. Maponga is running to South Africa to the hospital, and cartoon me up and draw stuff. But anyway, it's part of comedy.
No. National publicity is bad publicity.
Yeah, but I think it's a commercial part of our lives has become always doubling up. You're not never doing one thing. You're doing this and this and this. But I'm quite excited to be in the country, as I'm beginning to see some positive movements. I mean, airports are getting finished, completion in terms of building. I passed by there yesterday, and I drove to Masvingo the other day. Beautiful, beautiful piece of work. And I even drove to Bedbridge. And beautiful piece of work. I've covered the dam in Nkai, wonderful work. The Gwai Dam that has been constructed, beautiful. I might be leaving for Wanki. I want to go and see for myself the electricity power stations that are coming up there and report on that. So I came back into the country basically to do a media coverage of the positive things that are happening. And I'm doing so deliberately. Not that there's no bad thing happening, but as a person who has lived on the international space for a long time, and the content that was coming out of the country, it was all
negative.
Yeah, and my TT way it's almost we're being known for gossip, and you wonder, is this the whole country? Is this all that is happening in the whole country? And I felt, no man, guys, we're losing a beautiful storyline. So, and I started to say that story, and I must say, for the past 2 years that I've been around, I don't want to take credit, but I'm beginning to see some warmth coming out from the media space, and people are beginning to relook at themselves and speak about themselves even more positively. Also, people can take pictures of their fields, their grains, where they are plowing. And even my project, which I'm doing home, rebuilding my grandfather's and I'm seeing other boys also are encouraged. They're also taking pictures of their own matongo. And I'm not saying so to brag. I'm allowing my story to become your story. And I know I represent many young people out there who have left home, have gone to other places, and back where they're coming from, it's fallen apart. I'm not embarrassed. It fell apart. But I'm here to rebuild it. So it's a storyline that I would want to share with my fellow African boys that, hey, it's never too late to do the right thing. So in my 2 cents worth, I think we're on the right path. And again, if we stop this 5-year democratic changing around, we'll go very far. Because for the first year, you're still finding your feet. Yeah. Second year, you're starting to plan. Third year, research starts. And fourth year, you're tendering. Oh, yeah. And procuring. Then on the fourth year, you're now starting to campaign. Because next year is election. And then you keep on having these 5-year programs which are never completed.
The next person who comes has got a totally different idea.
We need 2060. We need 100-year planning, way forward looking. And then we would find that when we are standing in the future, we can see the past much clearer.
Yeah, that's one of the other things that not that I respect the concept around it, but not that I envy what the document states. You know, when you look at the Declaration of it's the Declaration of Independence, right? The American document that the founding fathers, and then up to this day they can still refer. That was a genius of their part, though. Although it's got some flaws here and there, but I mean
that's a book that's the benchmark. You start from here going that way, and I think for us as a country, it's for us. Let's not blame anybody. We need to fashion what I might call the Zimbabwe dream.
True.
What country do we want? What does it look like? Who are going to be residents there? What industries is going to be running? What kind of business? What entertainment are we going to be putting?
What kind of people are going to produce?
We go to sleep with our wives tonight to produce those people. So they're not going to be falling from the sky.
And you know the funny thing, like I always see people queuing up for, like people are taking these exams to just leave the country and stuff like that. And it breaks my heart that how can we be producing so much human capital just for someone else to actually use it?
That will not stop until we stop the trucks that are taking minerals out of the ground. Because every truckload that you see that is driving past that road is going with your factories. It's going with your plants. It's going with your industries. Because Africa has got a problem. The three tiers. Tier number 1 is what I call primary industries, where basically you cut more, you dig more, give me more of the raw material as it is. Then you have the secondary industries, where then they wash these minerals now and remove the impurities and end up with your steel, with your chrome, with your what. Then the tertiary industries, where they convert these minerals now into gadgets and etc. So Africa needs to understand that the European market is tertiary, is secondary, sorry. The Chinese market is tertiary. So you'll find that the raw materials that are being supplied by Africa, they are being washed here, they are being processed over there. So it's not easy to industrialize a primary market into a tertiary market without understanding the secondary market. So for now, what Zimbabwe needs is to start doing secondary market, which the Honorable Mnangagwa is already doing in terms of processing and washing even of this chrome and platinum and etc. before it goes out of the country. So slowly you begin to have more traction in terms of your secondary industries. And at a later stage, that's what China was able to do. 30 years of planning, China was now able to become the capital city of manufacturing. And ultimately it is to go to China and buy that technology that makes lithium batteries in Zimbabwe. You don't need to be taking lithium from Zimbabwe into China and then bring it back
at an exorbitant price, and then now you can't even get your solar. But I like the tempo that the African leaders are setting right now. The current African leaders that are there, I think they're getting to that point whereby if we're sitting at the table, we're sitting as equal. We're not sitting as donor,
sitting in the back of a bus.
Yeah, and as a fan of yours, I'm very disappointed that you never brought your latest book. I saw you advertise it on another podcast, but you never autograph. Thanks a lot. It's been an honor having you. I'm a fan of your work, and please keep on doing
the good
work, sir. I really appreciate it.